Page 16, 6 line from the top of the page. גופה אמר רבי ימי בר תביומי סיככה בבלי כלים פסולה. So this is basically נפסק להלכה, that's practical הלכות in תפריש כ"ט סעיף ו'. What they tell us is that if someone use a leftover clothing, and as we explained yesterday, we have to differentiate between rich and poor. People, especially in those days, use leftover of clothing for other purposes. In other words, we are blessed in the modern days that we are using sometimes so many things just one time and goodbye. In those days, especially poor people, they use clothing, they use leftover towels, they use all kind of, how do you call it in Polish, mates?
Yeah.
All kind of things.
Old sheets and blankets, yeah.
Yeah, right, to cover the sukkah.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, if he puts this type of cover in the sukkah, my bla'ei kelim, אמר רבי מטלניות שאין בהם 3 על 3, דלא חזיין לא לעניים ולא לעשירים. So he talked about those small pieces that doesn't have 3 by 3 fingers. So it means that it's so small that the rich people not leave it, not use it, and the poor people, the poor people use that to fix the garments, but it's not much to do with that. So if they use that, so therefore it's pasul, it's invalid. תניא כותב רבי ימי בר תביומי, מחצלת של שיפה ושל גמי, שריה אף על פי שנפחתו משיעורה, אין מסככים בהם. So here we talk about מחצלת. מחצלת, it's basically man. Now, imagine let's say Egypt. So in Egypt the temperature is hot most of the year, or from Istanbul, let's say Morocco. Right? So over there most of the times it's hot weather. So there are people who are using a special mat, machzelet, and they put it on the ground and they sit on that. So the purpose of that machzelet is to what? To sit. Now a person takes that, and what did he do? He used it for the sukkah. Now let's think together. It's gidulo miyakarka, it's come from the ground, right? So he says, since we talked about yesterday, if you remember, the 2 conditions, and all these days we talk about 2 conditions. One, it should be from the ground and not receiving any ritual impurity. So the rabbi said that since originally it's come from something that is susceptible to render ritual impurity, so therefore it's not fitting. Imagine if a zav or nidar, etc., was sitting on that. That's what Rashi said.
Question on that. So what about, which is used so commonly nowadays, isn't that essentially the bamboo, the rolls of bamboo that you get? Isn't that essentially
Number
a
one,
mat?
do you use the roll of bamboo to sit on them?
Well, no, but how is it? So is it just the purpose that it was created for? So if someone created that roll, because let's face it, some people may sleep on something like that, use it as like a mattress or something like that.
The key point is, soon you see it again, when you're building a sukkah, you have to have your mindset, especially for the schach, that you make it for the purpose of.
So as long as it was made and it was never made with the intent of being a bed or a mat or something to sleep on. No, but in a sense, practical halachot,
even it's used for other purposes, right? But you are now building it and you are saying that I'm doing it for the schach, and in addition, not only shaking it, but it's not covered the entire schach. That's the best. In other words, you use other materials.
So really, so even with the bamboo, we should use something else in addition?
Some rabbis said it. Chazon Ish said it. Some rabbis said it, that you have to have other item that you are just doing it for this festival of Sukkot, and it's all fresh, and it's all cut, and it's all something that's not susceptible for ritual impurity, and it's all something you're cutting from the ground. So that's
just the interesting thing is in South Africa, where I was born, that bamboo was fairly readily available, but no one used it for schach. They always took cut something from the tree that was green when they took it off and use
because
that.
That's the problem. The whole purpose of ta'aseh, you should initiate that. It means that you have to cut and do it for the purpose of building the sukkah.
Right, and that's what they did. And when I first came here, the bamboo thing, that was very unusual for me. I didn't, of course now it makes life easier. But
Right. So they said, מחצלת הקנים גדולה מסככים בה, קטנה אין מסככים בה. So if you take this mat, so the large one, they made it solely or mainly for the schach. So it's not considering a vessel, it's not considering a kli, and it's not issue of Kabbalah Tuma, of susceptible for rendering ritual impurity. So they can use it for the schach. רבי אליעזר אומר, אף היא מקבלת טומאה ואין מסככים בה. Rabbi Eliezer said that, wait a second, since he used for the shchiva, for people to lie on that mat, then forget it. Cannot be used for schach, period. We are going to study at length, Mitzvah Shem, on page 19b in the Mishnah, the whole idea in this machloket. Now, you shall know, if you want to see the practical lachot, you see in the Mishnah Brura, or Shulchan Aruch in Tafresh Kaftet Tziv Vav, you see the idea that they basically rule according to the Chachamim, and the whole idea, the Mishnah Brura said that since the machzelet, the minhag is to really to lie on the machzelet, they don't use it for the cover, so it's possible to use this for schach. But anyway, the best way is to ask a prominent posek when you're using this type of thing. Hachotet bagadish, someone who create a hole within this hay. So the issue here, the Torah said ta'aseh, you should initiate something to create the sukkah. So here in a way he made the tfanot, the walls, but he didn't make a schach, something to have a schach for the tzel, for the shade of the sukkah. So therefore he didn't do it properly, so it's not fitting. That's what the Mishnah said. אמר רב הונא לא שנו אלא שאין שם חלל טפח בשבעה. So he said a big chidush. He says that's apply only if you have a hole that the size is 1 handbreadth by 7 handbreadth, אבל יש שם חלל טפח בשבעה, הרי זה סוכה. So he said, wait, so even you made it in such a way, originally speaking, you don't have the condition to make it schach, but then you made it happen, so therefore it's fine. We don't pass in halacha that way, but it's important to know his view. תנא מהחוכתת בגדיש לעשו לו סוכה, הרי זה סוכה. וענן לסוכה, we just said that it's not kosher. אליו שממינה, you have to say, כדי רב הונא שממינה. So that's the idea, we follow Rav Huna. So the Mishnah is dealing with Gadish, so it wasn't the size of 1 tefach. The Braita said that it was. Ika, the Ramele Mirma, there are those who explain this contradiction. תנן החוטאת בגדיש לעשות סוכה אינה סוכה, והתנניה הרי זו סוכה, מרב הונא קשיא, כאן שישנם חלל טבח במשך 7, וכאן שאין שם טבח במשך 7. So the difference is over there in the Mishnah they speaks about 1 by 7, and this the Braita is not. Now we're going to the next Mishnah, and before we start this Mishnah I want to emphasize that all the discussion is not at this point in practical halachot. When it's come to this type of things, it's very important to ask a prominent posek, because sometimes it's a very delicate issue.
Let me ask you just a quick question on the haystack. If you hollowed out a haystack but didn't leave the top, so basically used it just for walls and then put valid schach on the top, would that be
3 walls?
It's part of what was the haystack, are the walls. So essentially you're similar to the picture you had, except no hay on top, just 3 walls essentially. And then you come and put something else on top. Is that, I will say this, before answering this, any posek needs to see it. Mm-hmm. It's not as simple as you think, because yes, it is true that the key point in the sukkah is the schach.
it is true that you need to have the schach as a centerpiece of the decision if this is a prominent sukkah. Yet there are sources for rabbinic point that the three dfanot, the three walls, has to establish as the three walls. So now you may say that is a press need, is a rare circumstance, it may be just something that you need to build in a sense to have something there. It's one of those things that the posek need to see it by its eyes to rule, because it's on the surface it's fine. You just need to build a schach, but it doesn't resonate right.
But it seems to me it's in some ways it's similar to just digging a pit and putting schach on top of it in the ground. You see what I'm saying? Where didn't they say you had to have some walls, like a minimum of 10 tefachim?
That was the opinion basically of Rav Huna here, that he tried to say that if you have the minimum side, like 7 by 1.
Well, no, what I'm saying, I guess, is if you just dug a hole in the ground in order to, and you couldn't just put schach over the top of the hole, that wouldn't be a valid sukkah, right?
As I said, those type of things you have to ask.
Okay.
Good morning.
I don't want to take up too much time of it, sorry.
Mishnah. המשלשל דפנות מלמעלה למטה. See this beautiful picture. That's halacha leMoshe Messinai. They tell us that the size of the gdi of goat. Someone just put the wall from the top to the bottom, and he left a space of 3 tefachim, a 3 handbreadth on the bottom. Okay, so now here is the issue. אם גבוה מן הארץ 3 פסולה, אם גבוה מלמטה למעלה, אם גבוה 10 טפחים כשרה. So again, the idea is you have this gdi, this goat, that you can stand up. If you have this size of 3 tfachim, 3 handbreadth, which is basically the category of lavud, if you remember we studied it in Eruvin, that makes it make it or break it. Now, the other way around, it's also interesting way. Look what happened here. He built from the ground, and you have the 10 handbreadth, which you remember that's the basic one. So if they have this side, it's kosher. Good asik mechitzta, which means it's like we look at it, the Ritva explained that it's like you push it up to the schach. Now, Rabbi Yossi disagree, and he said, אומר, כשם שמלמעלה למטה 10 טפחים, כך מלמטה למטה 10 טפחים. So he said, the same ways will require 10 handbreadth from the top to the bottom to the top, so you need 10 handbreadth from the top to the bottom.
Yeah, I thought we learned that earlier, that the schach couldn't be more than 10 tefachim from the top of the wall,
Yes, but here we talk about the wall, not the schach.
But from the wall, though, the distance from the top of the wall.
Yes. So Rashi said that according to Rabbi Yossi, mechitza, a partition that it's in the height of 10 handbreadth, that make the sukkah kosher. Because we said good achit mechitzta, which means you can pull it down. It's like coming down to the ground. That's what Ben Yochanan the Ritva said. Now the Gemara elaborates on that. They said, what exactly the disputation between Tanakama and Rabbi Yossi? Mar savar mechitza tluya materet, umar savar mechitza tluya ena materet. So here we explain the disputation. Said, wait a second, let me find it. Okay. One hold, Rabbi Yossi hold, mechitza, that it's hanging. It makes the sukkah available, which means, we say that like good asik mechitza, you pull it to the ground. It's like it's coming to the ground. And the other one said that if it's 3 from the 3 tfachim from the ground, that's not, as long as the gdi, the goat, can come in, that's make it invalid. Now, we now going to juxtapose from other scenario. And here, since we're dealing with mechitza tluya, we bring another example. That's mechitza tluya, meaning suspended partition. Tnanatan, Eruvin, page 86. Bo sheben shtei chatzirot. If you remember when we study Eruvin, there is a well that it's between two courtyards, cistern. So they said, Ein memal'im mimena b'Shabbat, because each of them takes the other and he carries from one courtyard to another without making the Eruv. Ela im ken asa la mechitza 10 טפחים, בין מלמעלה, בין מלמטה, בין מתוך עוגנו. Only if he created a mechitza, a partition of 10 handbreadth, regardless if it's up or down, or if it's from ogno, inside the wall of that pit. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer. So I explained my book, Birah Klomar Rashi here. Rashi said, Ben mitoch ogno, Klomar ben milamala rachok min hamayim. So the idea is, regardless, it's basically also in the Tosfot here, regardless if the mechitza is from the milamata, from the bottom, or from the limala, from the top, as long as it's betoch ogno, so in other words, it's not the third scenario. It means that as long as it's made it for that purpose. So milamala, it means that it's the well in a distance from the water. And betoch ogno, it means that the mechitzot of the well, that it's above the ground. So the idea is that in Eruvin, this is a linen that the sages have with the water, that the mechitza tluya tatir b'hem, we allow it. Anyway, Rabban Shimon Gamliel Omer, he explained, he said, Beit Shammai omrim milamala, ובית הלל אומרים מלמטה. He said the petition that permits drawing water has to be placed from the top. That's the Beit Shammai's view. Beit Hillel said the opposite. So only if you made it close to the water, that petition is good. So in other words, both of them agreed that the mechitza allowed to fill up the water. Only disputation is if it's distant, it's enough hekel, you recognize it. That's basically the Gemara and the Ritva and Eruvin Peivav. Anyway, over there in Eruvin, Tosfot comment that the Girsa, it's just the opposite. Omar Rav Yehuda lo tiyeh mechitza gdula min hakotel benehem. Rav Yehuda said it should be more stringent, that the wall serving as a partition between the two courtyards. So it means that it's enough with that wall between the two mechitzot to divide the pit to two separate entities and allow to fill up the water, even it wasn't for that purpose. Omar Rabba Bavachan, Omar Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yehuda, Beshitat Rabbi Yossi Amara. Rabbi Yehuda hold that this wall between the two yards allowed to fill up the water from that pit, even if it wasn't for that purpose of filling the water. He hold the same as Rabbi Yossi Amar, Mechitza Tluya Materet, which means Rabbi Yossi hold that a suspended partition permits a person to carry. So what we understand, if you have the wall, and the wall it's in the middle of the courtyard, that's enough to divide the well, the cistern as well. So the Gemara said, Veloi, that's incorrect. Lo Rabbi Yehuda savar like Rabbi Yossi, v'lo Rabbi Yossi savar like Rabbi Yehuda. Neither one hold the others, which means neither Rabbi Yehuda hold Rabbi Yossi that mechitza tluya materet besukkah, that allowed to use it in a sukkah, and not the other one in Shabbat. So meaning Rashi explained that both agree that mechitza tluya materet, and they said the whole idea is someone disputed the other. Now, לא רבי יהודה סבר לה כרבי יוסי, עד כאן לא קמה רבי יהודה התם, אלא בעירובי חצרות. The only thing he said, it's about the joining of the courtyard. So therefore, the whole idea of the prohibition of carrying from one domain to another, it's only the Rabbanan, it's only rabbinic, because biblically speaking, we only have a prohibition against carrying from private domain to public domain. Now, aval hacha, but here in regards to what? To Sukkah, deoraita, it's biblical. Lo, Rabbi Yehuda didn't say that the mechitza tluya materet. So Gemarrah said, v'lo Rabbi Yossi savar like Rabbi Yehuda, ad kan lo kama Rabbi Yossi acha ela besukkah de mitzvah daseh. Which means if someone eat outside of the sukkah, he basically did not fulfill a positive commandment. So the difference is, you read the same sugya in Eruvin 86, but in Eruvin, over there they said that it's not mitzvah daseh, they said it's isur daseh. The Avnei Nezer said in Orach Chaim Taf Pei Bet that you derive from that not only bitul mitzvah daseh, but also the prohibition against eating and drinking and sleeping outside of the sukkah. Anyway, aval Shabbat isur skila, but Shabbat is a prohibition, and therefore they have the skila punishment. So that's lo. So maybe even something that is rabbinic, Rabbi Yossi said that mechitza tluya materet. So they said, Va'im tomar maaseh shenasa betzipori. You remember the story we talk about tzipori, but this is also upcoming story. So there is a two. There are some say that they apply only to for the following story. Anyway, the idea is that they're allowed to carry on Shabbat something that has a mechitza tluya. Al pi manasa, because Rav Yossi was the Rosh Yeshiva of Tzipori, and therefore they deal according to his view. So there's a famous Gemara in Sanhedrin 32 that you always go at the good Bet Din and examples Rav Yossi in Tzipori. So they said, Lo al pi Rabbi Yossi, el al pi Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi, because that happened after his passing. So that's applied to Rabbi Shmuel, son of Rabbi Yossi, that he fulfill the place of his father, and he hold the mechitza materet even Shabbat. Umay maaseh, what's the story? דחיית הרב דימי אמר, פעם אחת שכחו ולא הביאו ספר תורה מערב שבת. When Rav Dimi came from Eretz Israel to Babylon, so he said it was one time that they forgot to bring a Sefer Torah before Shabbat. So what happened? The Sefer Torah was left in a house that was open to the courtyard between the synagogue and other houses that was just open to that. So Rashi explained in those days they have a fear of enemies, so they used to hide the Sefer Torah in those homes. So since they didn't make the Eruv, so now they have the issue of carrying. They cannot carry from the house to the courtyard the Sefer Torah. So what did they do? There is a Rashi, he said that it was the issue of that the shul was open to the Tat Mavoy, but anyway, the alleyway. So למחר פרסוס דינים לגבי עמודים. הביאו ספר תורה וקראו בו. So guess what they did? They take a big sheets and they put it on the top of those pillars from the house that they have the Sefer Torah up to the synagogue, and they make like a little alleyway from that house to the synagogue. So it means that in addition to that house, it wasn't any other opening to that alleyway, so therefore you can carry. So Meiri said that since people are not living there, so that make it available. But anyway, so they brought the Sefer Torah and they read it. So what's the point? The point is that those sheets were 3 tfachim high from the ground, and anyway they make it as a partition to that alleyway between that alleyway to the rest of the courtyard, and they make it independent reshut, independent domain. So they ask, by the way, a question, you mean to say that during Shabbat they took these sheets and put it there? Meichan during Shabbat. You cannot carry them. So how they did it? So Tosfot have a lot here to say, but anyway, אלא מצאו סדינים פרוסים על גבי עמודים והביאו ספר תורה וקראו בו. It was something that's already before the Shabbat. And toward this alleyway, they brought the Sefer Torah and read. So there are those, the Shut Rabbi Akiva Iger said in Mahadura Kama, Yud he said that here is a proof that the whole idea of Isurei Shvut Miderabanan, the rabbinic prohibition on Shabbat, it's this is the proof, because if they didn't found those sheets, they will not be able to carry the Torah to the synagogue. מה רב חיסדא אמר אבימי? מחצלת 4 ומשהו, מטלת בסוכה משום דופן. He said, if you have a mat that is a 4 handbreadth and a bit wide, can permit to use as a sukkah as well. Hey Chavid, how are you doing that? דל אלי באמצע פחות מ3 למטה או פחות מ3 למעלה, וכיוון שפחות מ3 כלבוד דמי. So basically he puts this less than 3 from the top, less than 3 from the bottom. So that's, the Ran explains that that's basically the core idea that will be kelavud. So imagine if you have 3 on the bottom, and then you have on the top another 3. So it's basically, by doing so, so you have the heights of 10 handbreadth, and that's the size of a dofen. So for those who are not so familiar, lavud is halacha leMoshe Sinai. We explained it many times in Eruvin that anything below than 3 handbreadth, it's considering like satum, like black. So the pshita, the Gemara said that that's obvious. You may say that that's apply only one spot of the lavud of the 3 handbreadth, but if it's in both sides, the top and the bottom, so kamash melan. So therefore, Rav Chizda come and teach us that we said it even can be twice. If you have a mat that have a 7 handbreadth and a little more, so you can use it for the sukkah because that's one of the walls. So now you see different, because here you said it's only one. Here it means that you cannot do it more than one lavud. So they said kitanya hi besukah gdola. When we're speaking about machzelet shiva, we speak about large sukkah, which means that they have higher than 10 handbreadth. So if even you put a machzelet, a mat, in the size of 4 handbreadth and a little more, it's not sufficient. So you need to have 7. And another lavud, it completes 7 plus 3, so it make it 10. But if they have the sukkah that have a 10 handbreadth height, exactly, even machzelet, even a mat in a 4, it's enough and make it kosher. Umay kamash malan. So why we have to learn this idea of lavud? So they said משלשלים דפנות מלמעלה למטה כרבי יוסי. So if he put this mat in a size of the 3 handbreadth from the schach, it's okay, even it's a distance of 3 handbreadth the way that Rabbi Yossi. So I think in new Gemarrahs you see some pictures of that. I'm right?
Yes.
So the idea of Rabbi Yossi said that mechitza mater tluya, if you have it hanging mechitza, let's make it kosher for the sukkah. Amar Rabbi Yami, pas 4 במשהו מתיר בסוכה משום דופן. Rabbi Yami said that board that measure 4 handbreadth and a bit can permit you the sukkah, serving as a wall. ומוקים לה, and we speak here, בפחות מ3 טפחים סמוך לדופן. That it's a less than 3 handbreadth from the adjacent wall. So they said, and again, it's that zavit, that corner on that side. So Rashi said that it make it is zavit yeshara, that in the straight corner of that. וכל פחות משלושה סמוך לדופן כלבוד דמי. So we said that this principle, any legal status of any object, that with a gap of less than 3 handbreadth between them, so it's considering as the join. My kamashmalan. Why we have this? What Rabbi Yami come to teach us? Come to teach us ללבוד. הקמשמלן שיעור משך סוכה קטנה 7. So he come and teach us that the measure of a small sukkah, measure of the horizontal extension of the wall of a small sukkah is 7 handbreadth. So what we understand from that? That's basically according to way Rashi explained, according to Beit Shammai. So because they said that it's not enough to see head and the body, you have to have also the table in the sukkah. So you can build a wall for the sukkah using a board that measures 4 handbreadth and a bit. That's Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 635. Hachotech bagadish, one who hollows out of stack of grain. As you see in this picture, this guy, he's basically making this a hole in that grain. So what do you think? For sure, it's not the structure of sukkah, right? But our issue, as you know, in the sukkah, first and foremost, is the schach. Schach meaning that you have a shade of the at the top of you, and you're sitting under the schach. That's the key point of the sukkah, and you don't have that. So they said a stack of grain that was hollow out, creating a space, it's not fit as sukkah, because the stack was not established for the purpose of shade. Letzel. However, if one left a space measuring 7 handbreadth square and a 1 handbreadth high for the sake of the sukkah, when he originally formed the stack of grain, and he subsequently expanded the space to a height of 10 handbreadth, it is a fit sukkah. That's basically according to Mishnah and according to Rav Huna. Shilshel Tfanot Basukah, that's Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 630. If the walls of the sukkah are lower and reach within 3 handbreadth from the ground, they are fit and the sukkah is fit. Bor sheben shtei chatzerot, Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 376. One may not draw water on Shabbat from a cistern located between 2 courtyards, between which an eruv is not established, unless a partition of 10 handbreadth height is built in the middle. If this partition is constructed above the water line, it must descend at least 1 handbreadth below the surface of the water. If the partition was constructed in the water, it must rise above the surface at least 1 handbreadth. That's basically a conclusion, the Gemara in the tractate. Mechitzot arba'a umashahu. In the case of a sukkah that is a 10 handbreadth high, one may position a partition that measures a bit more than 4 handbreadth, so that it is less than 3 handbreadth of the ground and less than 3 handbreadth from the roofing. The partition is fit based on the principle of lavud. That's according to opinion of Rav Chizda. Machzelet shiva v'mashu. One may position a mat measuring a bit more than 7 handbreadth in width, and that is within 3 handbreadth of the ground, even if the roofing is very high. This partition serves as a fit sukkah wall. This halakha is ruled according to opinion of the sages, and we see it in Gemara. That's the Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 630. Now, as I said at the very beginning, that in this type of question, when it's come to a practical halachot, a person should ask a prominent posek, because many times it can go either way.